My name is Victoria, and I'm 28 years old. 3 months ago, I made a decision that changed everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and what it means to truly belong somewhere. I should probably start by telling you about the phone call that shattered my world. I was sitting in my corner office overlooking the Seattle skyline, reviewing quarterly reports for my marketing firm. The rain was drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. My phone buzzed with a text from my half-sister Emma. "Mom's planning the twins' 6th birthday party for next weekend. It's going to be at the country club. Just wanted you to know." I smiled, already mentally planning what gifts to buy for my little brothers. Marcus and Tyler were the light of my life. Even though we only shared a father, they'd never made me feel like anything less than their big sister. But then my stepmother, Linda, called. "Victoria, I need to discuss something with you." Her voice had that sharp edge I'd learned to recognize over the past 15 years. "About the boys' party." "Of course. What can I help with? Should I bring anything special?" The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Actually, we've decided this year's celebration will be immediate family only. You understand." My coffee mug slipped from my fingers. It shattered against my desk, sending ceramic shards across important contracts. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" "The party is for close family, blood relatives. We want to keep it intimate this year." Blood relatives. The words hit like a physical blow. I'd been part of this family since I was 13, when my father married Linda. I'd helped raise Emma from the time she was 8. I'd been there for every milestone, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. "Linda, the boys are my brothers. I've never missed their birthday." "Half-brothers," she corrected coldly. "And this decision is final. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, watching drops of coffee drip onto the floor. 15 years of family dinners, Christmas mornings, and school plays suddenly felt like borrowed time, like I'd been playing house in someone else's life. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal that might just change how you see your own relationships. That night, I called my father. He was traveling. For work, as usual. When I told him about Linda's decision, he sighed heavily. "Victoria, honey, you know how Linda gets about her children. Maybe it's best if you just let this one go." "Let it go?" "Dad, they're my brothers too." "Of course they are. But you're successful, independent. You don't need us like they do." The casual dismissal in his voice broke something inside me. I realized I'd been fighting for scraps of belonging my entire adult life, always trying to prove I deserved a place at their table. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I hung up the phone and opened my laptop. By morning, I'd chartered a private jet and booked the presidential suite at the city's most exclusive resort. If Linda wanted to play games about family, I was going to show her exactly what she was throwing away. But this story isn't just about revenge. It's about what happened when I discovered who my real family was all along. It's about learning that sometimes the people who share your blood are strangers, while strangers can become the family you choose. Over the next 48 hours, I would uncover secrets that had been hidden for years. I would learn which relationships were built on genuine love and which ones were constructed from obligation and convenience. Most importantly, I would discover that being excluded from someone else's definition of family might actually be the greatest gift they could give you. Have you ever felt like an outsider in your own family? Have you ever wondered if the people closest to you see you the way you see yourself? If so, you're going to want to hear what happened next. because what I learned that weekend didn't just change my relationship with my family. It changed how I see myself and what I'm willing to accept from people who claim to love me. This is the story of how being uninvited to a 6-year-old's birthday party taught me the difference between being wanted and being tolerated, and why sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. To understand why Linda's words cut so deep, you need to know how our blended family came to be. It wasn't always this complicated. My mother died in a car accident when I was 12. One moment I was a normal middle schooler worried about algebra tests and friend drama. The next, I was planning a funeral and learning that grief doesn't follow any of the neat timelines adults promise you. Dad was devastated. He'd loved my mother since high school, and watching him try to function after losing her was like watching someone learn to breathe underwater. He would sit at the kitchen table for hours, staring at bills he forgot to pay, eating cereal for dinner because cooking felt impossible. That's where Linda came in. She worked at Dad's accounting firm as a senior partner. Linda was everything. My mother wasn't. Polished, ambitious, and practical. Where Mom had been warm and spontaneous, Linda was organized and efficient. She wore perfectly tailored suits and never had a hair out of place. At first, I was grateful. Linda helped Dad. Remember to eat actual meals. She made sure I had clean clothes and got to school on time. She brought structure to our chaos. 8-year-old Emma was Linda's daughter from her first marriage. Emma's biological father had disappeared when she was 2, leaving Linda to raise her alone. Emma was shy and serious, with Linda's sharp features but softer eyes. She clung to her mother like a life preserver. When Dad and Linda married a year later, we moved into Linda's pristine suburban house. Everything was beige and cream with throw pillows that matched the curtains. It felt like living in a furniture showroom where children weren't supposed to exist. But I tried. God, how I tried. I helped Emma with homework. I braided her hair for school pictures. I taught her to ride a bike in the driveway while Linda worked late. When other kids made fun of her quiet nature, I stood up for her. I thought, we were becoming real sisters. The twins arrived when I was 16 and Emma was 12. Marcus and Tyler were unexpected miracles who brought joy back into our house. Linda had struggled with fertility for years, and their arrival felt like a gift from the universe. Those babies changed everything. Suddenly, Linda had the perfect family she'd always dreamed of. Successful husband, devoted daughter, and twin sons who looked exactly like her. I watched her transform from efficient stepmother to radiant mother, glowing with a contentment I'd never seen before. I loved those boys from the moment they opened their eyes. I changed diapers at 2 a.m. I walked the floors when they were colicky. I was the one who heard Tyler's first word and taught Marcus to tie his shoes. But somewhere along the way, I started noticing the subtle differences. The way Linda introduced us at school events. This is my daughter Emma, and these are my sons Marcus and Tyler, and this is Victoria, my husband's daughter. The Christmas photos where I was always positioned slightly apart from the group, like an afterthought. The family vacation planning sessions where my preferences were noted but never actually considered. Emma noticed too, though she never said anything directly. I'd catch her looking at me with something between guilt and pity during family dinners. She'd gotten everything I'd lost: a mother's undivided attention, a secure place in the family hierarchy, and the certainty that she belonged. But Emma was also complicated. As we grew older, she developed Linda's sharp tongue but not her confidence. She was jealous of my independence, my success, even my relationship with the twins. Sometimes I wondered if she resented that I'd gotten a head start on being their big sister. Dad's response to all this was to disappear into work. He traveled more, stayed later at the office, and avoided any conflict that might disturb the peace Linda had created. He convinced himself that providing financially was the same as being present emotionally. By the time I graduated college, and started my own business, I thought I'd found my place in this family ecosystem. I was the successful older sister who helped with college funds and Christmas gifts. I was useful, appreciated, and included, but I was never essential. And Linda's phone call made that brutally clear. The thing about being a stepchild is that you're always auditioning for a role you thought was already yours. You're constantly proving your worth, your loyalty, your right to exist in someone else's origin story. That weekend, I decided to stop auditioning. The next morning, I called my assistant Rachel and told her to clear my schedule. Rachel had been with me since I started the company 3 years ago, and she'd become more than an employee. She was the closest thing I had to a best friend. "Boss, what's going on? You never take time off." I told her about Linda's phone call and my plan to crash the party. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. "Victoria, are you sure about this? It sounds like you're about to burn some serious bridges." The bridges were already burning. I just didn't realize I was the only one trying to put out the fire. But Rachel raised a good point. Was this about the twins, or was this about my own wounded pride? I spent the morning questioning my motives, wondering if I was being petty or justified. That's when my phone rang. It was Marcus. "Sissy Tori?" His 6-year-old voice was small and confused. "Mommy says you can't come to our party, but Tyler and I want you there. We made you a special invitation at school." My heart clenched. "What kind of special invitation, buddy?" "It has glitter and everything. Tyler drew a picture of you in your fancy work clothes. Are you really not coming?" Before I could answer, I heard Linda's voice in the background, sharp and angry. The phone was yanked away. "Marcus, give me that phone right now." Then Linda's voice, cold and furious. "Don't you dare manipulate my children. This decision is final." The line went dead again. That's when I knew this wasn't about the party. This was about Linda erasing me from her perfect family picture, one event at a time. If I let this slide, next it would be Christmas, then graduations, then weddings. I'd become the family secret, the inconvenient reminder of Dad's first life. I made 3 phone calls that afternoon. First, I called Emma. She answered on the first ring, her voice cautious. "Victoria, I heard about the party thing. I'm sorry. Are you, though? Because you didn't seem surprised when Mom made that announcement." The pause told me everything. She's been talking about making boundaries for a while, about how you're not really part of our core family unit. Core family unit? The clinical phrase made my skin crawl. "Emma, I helped raise you. I taught you to drive. I was there when you had your first heartbreak. I know, and I'm grateful. But you have to understand Mom's perspective. You're successful and independent. You don't need us the way we need each other." There it was again. The assumption that success meant I didn't need love, belonging, or family connection. As if financial independence was a substitute for human relationships. "What about what the boys want? Did anyone ask them?" Emma's voice got smaller. "Mom says they're too young to understand complicated family dynamics." Second call was to my Aunt Sarah, my mother's sister. Sarah lived across the country but had always stayed in touch. She was the only person who really remembered what our family looked like before Linda. "Honey, I've been waiting for this call for years," Sarah said when I explained the situation. "I've watched that woman systematically erase your mother's memory and your place in that family. Your mother would be heartbroken." But am I being petty? Making a big deal out of a children's party? It's not about the party. It's about respect. It's about your right to exist in your own family. Your mother would want you to fight for your place with those boys. The third call was to my lawyer, James Morrison. James had helped me incorporate my business and handle several contract negotiations. He was also Linda's nephew, though they barely spoke due to some family drama from years ago. James, I need advice about something personal. When I explained the situation, James whistled low. Aunt Linda always was territorial about her version of family. But Victoria, there might be more to this than you realize. What do you mean? Dad's been talking to me about updating his will. Nothing dramatic, just standard stuff. But he mentioned some complicated feelings about fairness between you and Emma's kids. I think Linda's pushing for specific provisions. My blood ran cold. What kind of provisions? I shouldn't say more. But maybe it's time you had a conversation with your father about his long-term plans. And maybe it's time someone reminded Linda that family isn't something she gets to define unilaterally. That evening, as I finalized my plans for the weekend, I realized this had become about much more than a birthday party. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzling. I'd barely slept, but my resolve had only strengthened overnight. I dressed carefully in a tailored navy dress and heels, the kind of outfit that commanded respect in boardrooms. If I was going to make an entrance, I wanted to look like someone you couldn't dismiss. The private jet was smaller than I'd expected, but luxurious in that understated way that whispers money rather than shouting it. As we lifted off, I felt a strange calm settle over me. There was no turning back now. The country club sat on 50 acres of manicured grounds, all rolling greens and pristine gardens. I could see the party set up from the air. Colorful balloons, a bounce house, and at least 30 people gathered on the main terrace. The twins' birthday party was in full swing. My pilot, a professional woman named Captain Martinez, looked back at me as we prepared to land. "You sure about this, miss? Looks like quite the gathering down there." "I've never been more sure of anything." We touched down on the club's private airstrip, just visible from the party terrace. I watched through the small window as heads turned toward the unexpected arrival. The jet's engines were loud enough to interrupt any conversation. I took a deep breath, checked my reflection one more time, and stepped out into the Washington afternoon. The walk from the airstrip to the party felt like crossing a battlefield. I could feel dozens of eyes tracking my movement, could hear the conversations grinding to a halt. Linda's carefully planned, intimate gathering was suddenly very public. Marcus saw me first. He broke away from a group of children and came running, his little legs pumping as fast as they could carry him. "Sissy Tori, you came! You came in an airplane!" Tyler was right behind him, both boys crashing into my legs with enough force to nearly knock me over. Their joy was pure and uncomplicated, exactly what I'd needed to remember why I was doing this. "We knew you'd come," Marcus whispered against my dress. "We told Mommy you always keep your promises." Over their heads, I could see Linda approaching. Her face was a mask of controlled fury, the kind of expression that had terrified me as a teenager but now just looked petty and small. "Victoria, this is unexpected." The entire party had gone quiet. Extended family members, neighbors, and the boys' friends were all watching our confrontation unfold. Linda's perfect party had become a spectacle, and she knew it. "Hello, Linda, boys, happy birthday." I knelt down to their level, pulling wrapped gifts from my purse. "I brought you something special. You need to leave. Now." Linda's voice was low but carrying, designed to sound authoritative without creating more of a scene. I stood slowly, keeping my voice equally quiet but steady. "I'm not going anywhere. These are my brothers, and this is their birthday. I was invited by the only people whose opinion actually matters. This is a private event. You're trespassing." That's when Dad appeared at Linda's shoulder. He looked older than I remembered, and deeply uncomfortable. "Victoria, sweetheart, maybe we should talk about this privately." "No, Dad. I'm done with private conversations that lead nowhere. I'm done pretending that 15 years of family history can be erased because it's inconvenient for Linda's narrative. The words were coming out clearer and stronger than I expected. Months of swallowing hurt and anger had crystallized into perfect, controlled fury. You don't understand the complexities, Linda started. I understand perfectly. You want a neat family story without complications. You want to pretend that Dad's first marriage and his first daughter never happened. But I'm not going away, Linda. I'm not disappearing to make your family photos look better. Emma appeared beside Linda, looking miserable. Victoria, please, don't do this here. Where should I do it, Emma? Behind closed doors where no one can witness how I'm being treated? At another family meeting where my feelings don't count because I'm not immediate family? The twins were still clinging to my legs, sensing the tension, but not understanding it. Their innocent presence was the only thing keeping this confrontation from becoming even uglier. Boys, I said gently, why don't you go play with your friends for a minute? The grown-ups need to have a conversation. Marcus looked up at me with serious eyes. Are you in trouble, Sissy Tori? No, buddy. Sometimes grown-ups just need to work out their feelings with words. They reluctantly ran back toward the bounce house, but I could see them watching us from across the terrace. Linda stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. You've made your point. Now leave before you ruin their day completely. Their day, or your carefully orchestrated performance. What happened next surprised everyone, including me. Instead of escalating the confrontation, I walked over to the gift table and placed my presents among the others. Then I found an empty chair at one of the family tables and sat down, crossing my legs and settling in like I belonged there. Because I did belong there. The tension was thick enough to cut, but slowly conversations resumed. The children's laughter from the bounce house provided a soundtrack of normalcy that made the adult drama seem ridiculous by comparison. Linda stood frozen for several minutes, clearly calculating her next move. She could call security, but that would create an even bigger scene. She could storm off, but it was her son's party. She could try to ignore me, but my presence had already disrupted her perfect event. Emma eventually sat down beside me, her voice barely above a whisper. You really did it. You actually came. Did you think I wouldn't? Honestly? Part of me hoped you would. I've been watching Mom control every aspect of our family for years, and sometimes I wonder what we've lost along the way. That conversation with Emma changed something between us. For the first time in years, we talked like sisters instead of rivals for Linda's approval. She told me about feeling trapped between loyalty to her mother and genuine affection for me. I told her about feeling like a perpetual outsider in my own family. I don't think Mom means to be cruel, Emma said, but she's so afraid of losing what she's built that she pushes away anything that doesn't fit her vision. The party continued around us. I played games with the twins, talked to relatives I hadn't seen in months, and slowly remembered what it felt like to just exist in my family without constantly analyzing my place in it. Dad eventually approached me during cake time. He looked exhausted. Victoria, we need to talk, but not here. We've needed to talk for 15 years, Dad. The location doesn't matter anymore. I know I've failed you. I know I took the easy path instead of fighting for what was right. It was the first time he'd acknowledged his role in the family. Dynamics. Not an excuse or a rationalization, but actual accountability. The boys love you, he continued. Linda knows that. I think that's part of what scares her. Love isn't a finite resource, Dad. Me having a relationship with the twins doesn't diminish their relationship with her. I know that. I need to do better at making sure she knows it too. When the party ended and I was preparing to leave, Linda approached me one final time. Her anger had been replaced by something that looked almost like resignation. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "No, it's not. But it's not a war, Linda. It never had to be a war." 1 year later. As I write this story, 12 months have passed since what Emma now calls the Great Birthday Intervention. The changes in our family have been gradual but significant. Dad and I started having monthly dinners, just the two of us. We talked through years of avoided conversations, acknowledged mistakes, and began building an adult relationship based on honesty instead of obligation. Linda and I declared a cautious truce. We're never going to be close, but we've established boundaries that allow us to coexist at family events. She includes me in major celebrations, and I respect her role as the twins' mother. Emma and I have become genuinely close for the first time since childhood. She started therapy to work through her complicated feelings about family loyalty and approval seeking. We text almost daily and meet for coffee every week. The twins are now 7, and their relationship with me is stronger than ever. They know I'm their big sister who flies in airplanes and always keeps her promises. That's all they need to know right now. But the biggest change has been in me. I stopped waiting for permission to love my family. I stopped trying to earn a place that was always mine by right. I learned the difference between fighting for your relationships and fighting for other people's validation of those relationships. That weekend taught me that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply show up. Not with anger or demands, but with presence and persistence. Family isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create, nurture, and fight for. And sometimes, fighting for it means refusing to disappear when someone else wants to pretend you were never there at all. If you've made it this far in my story, I want to thank you for listening. Sharing something this personal isn't easy, but I've learned that our stories have power when we're brave enough to tell them honestly. The decision to charter that private jet cost me $3,000. The decision to show up despite being uninvited was priceless. But let me be clear about something. This story isn't about money or grand gestures. Yes, the dramatic arrival made a point, but the real work happened in the months that followed. It happened in difficult conversations, in setting boundaries, and in refusing to accept treatment that diminished my worth. Have you ever been made to feel like an outsider in your own family? Have you ever had someone try to erase your place in relationships that matter to you? If so, I want you to know that your feelings are valid. Your relationships are worth fighting for, even when, especially when, other people tell you they're not. I learned something important that weekend. You can't control how other people define family, but you can control how you respond to their definitions. You can choose to shrink and disappear, or you can choose to stand up and claim your space. The comments on my previous videos have shown me that blended family dynamics are more complicated than anyone wants to admit. So many of you have shared stories about feeling caught between different loyalties, about struggling to find your place in families that weren't designed with you in mind. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time when you had to fight for your place in a relationship that mattered to you. How did it turn out? What would you do differently? What I want you to understand is that you don't need anyone's permission to love your family members. You don't need approval to maintain relationships that bring joy to your life. The twins didn't care about complicated adult dynamics. They just wanted their big sister at their party. Sometimes the simplest truths are the most powerful ones. Emma told me something last month that really stuck with me. She said, "I spent so many years trying to be the perfect daughter that I forgot how to just be a person." I think that's what happens to a lot of us in complicated families. We become so focused on playing our assigned roles that we lose sight of our authentic selves. If you're in a situation where family members are trying to diminish your importance, remember this. You are not responsible for other people's insecurities. You are not required to make yourself smaller so other people feel bigger. You are not obligated to disappear so someone else's family portrait looks neater. But you are responsible for how you respond. You can choose to respond with grace, with boundaries, and with the kind of love that doesn't require permission from anyone else. Before I wrap up, I want to ask you something. If you found this story helpful, if it resonated with something you're going through, please hit the like button. It really helps more people find these stories, and based on your comments, I know so many of you are navigating similar challenges. And if you want to hear more stories about family dynamics, about setting boundaries, and about learning to value yourself in relationships, please subscribe. I share new videos every week about real-life situations that don't have neat, simple solutions. Here's what I want you to remember. Your worth isn't determined by other people's ability to see it. Your place in your family isn't dependent on someone else's approval. And your relationships don't have to fit anyone else's definition of what family should look like. The twins are turning 8 next month. This time, I received the invitation in the mail with a note that said, "Sissy Tori's airplane welcome," in Marcus's careful handwriting. There won't be any dramatic arrivals this year, just a big sister showing up to celebrate the little boys who never doubted that she belonged there. Sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes showing up is enough. What's one relationship in your life that you need to show up for more consistently? What's one boundary you need to set to protect your emotional well-being? What's one conversation you've been avoiding that might change everything? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories inspire the videos I make. Until next week, remember, you belong in your own life. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.